about those men who those 237, 236 years ago stood upon principle, stood upon one simple thing. They fought for liberty. They fought for the ability for you to sit here tonight. But what will you do? What will you do when you are challenged with a principle of governance that is antithetical to who we are? Understanding limited government, fiscal responsibility, understanding individual sovereignty in our free marketplace, our traditional cultural values. There were families that built this great nation. There were families that extended this nation all the way up here into the pioneer areas of upstate New York and out west. Those families, when they were confronted with crossing the Hudson and crossing the Mississippi, they didn't turn around and say, is someone from the government going to come build us a bridge? They stood as Americans, and they stood and they said, we will figure out a way. That's why families are important. You know another reason why families are important? There was a great New York senator, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who once talked about, if you gave checks to young women for having children out of wedlock, eventually you would destroy a family unit. That's why my wife Angela and I have been married 23 years. We're only 28% in the black community. 28% of a husband and a wife at home with their children. That's what we're doing all across this country because we've forgotten about traditional cultural values. And last but not least, we can repair this economy. We can make you prosperous. We can restore this republic to all kind of economic greatness. But if we do not keep you safe, if we do not make sure that we have the most superior military that the world has ever known, that is ready to deter any type of aggression, then what happened on September 11th will continue to happen again and again and again. And I think it is absolutely reprehensible that you have a commander-in-chief, a president of the United States of America, who would allow a thing called sequestration to happen to our military, to take our great military and make the Army and the Marine Corps at personnel levels back in 1940, to take our great United States Navy. When I crossed Lake Champlain, I thought about the naval battles that were there, all these great lakes. I thought about when one great American, John Paul Jones, said one simple thing: I have not yet begun to fight. And he established the tradition of a great United States Navy. A great Navy that in 1990 had about 573 naval war vessels. Today it only has 285. As sequestration goes through, they will be down to 230. An Air Force that will go down to the smallest Air Force that we have known since we created the modern-day United States Air Force, by losing 9 tactical fighter squadrons. We will do that to our military at a time when the world is more volatile than it was when I raised my right hand in 1982 as a second lieutenant. Those are the reasons why that woman there has to come back to Washington, D.C. We have to have those principled constitutional conservatives that will stand and say, this will not go any further, that will stand upon the principles and values that 237 years ago set forth the greatest experiment that the world has ever known. An experiment that's part of our DNA, part of our genome, part of the essence of what it means to be an American. But if we forget it, if we lose these fundamental values that come from this founding document, then what will Anne Marie pass on to her grandkids? What will you pass on to your grandchildren and to your children? This is my challenge to you. You got to go out and find 5 people that don't believe as you do and convince 3 to see things different. Now, why do I say 60%? Very simple. You know, some drill sergeants coined the phrase with us when I was a young cadet out at Fort Lewis, Washington. They said, some of you boys, y'all just stuck on stupid. There's probably close 35 to 40% of the United States of America that is in that same type of category. But go after the other 60 to 65%. And it's possible. And let me tell you why it's possible. Because as we put the rental car up over there at the airport, we got into a cab. This young man by the name of Michael. When we got into the cab, we saw that Michael had a little button. It was a Michelle Obama 2012 button. And of course, you know, when you're there in the taxi cab, you're going to start talking to people, and Michael asked about who I was, where I was from, and everything. And he looked, he said, "You a Democrat or Republican?" So I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. Michael, how are you doing? And he said, "Well, you know, I got to tell you, I'm a proud supporter of President Obama, and I would vote for Michelle if she ran for president." I said, "Well, that's very nice, Mike. That's honorable that you would believe that." I said, "Well, let's have a chat. Let's talk about some things." Well, Michael started talking about this whole, 1% and everything, and I told him, "Well, Michael, almost 40% of the taxes are paid by that 1% that you're talking about." He said, "Well, don't you believe that those people making $250,000 above should pay more taxes?" I said, $250,000 really not a lot of money, Michael, when you think about it. I said, "Let's understand this. You're talking about the top 2 tax brackets in the United States of America." I said, "Small business owners are the ones that operate as subchapter S and LLCs." And I began to explain what a subchapter S and an LLC is, and tell him that they use the personal income tax rate for their businesses. I said, "If you raise taxes on them, what's going to happen to small business owners?" He said, "Well, I never considered that." He said, "But I don't like that Mitt Romney, because that Mitt Romney, he's out there, working for all these rich people and everything." I said, "Well, it's funny you say that. You live here in New York." I said, "President Obama actually raised more money on Wall Street than Mitt Romney has." And then Catherine, she brought it back in 2008.